So in the dream, there were young men. There were young men that were in old army uniforms, old BDUs, like 90s uniforms, not necessarily World War One or two, but they were in like 90s army attire. And they were all younger than me. All these men were younger than me. None of them were millennials. They were all Gen Z men. And they were running into a battlefield. Now, let me describe this battlefield to you. It was very big, it was very wide, and it was dark outside. So it was nighttime. So the grass was dark green, but had that very much black hue over it. And the men were running into the battlefield and being shot down. I mean, shot in the head, shot in the chest, shot down. Um, it was every last one of them. They were all running out with weapons. They were running out with old guns that the military no longer uses in combat. M16s are not used in the military combat anymore. And they were running out there with them, and they were not using them properly. They were flailing above the head, going and then and they're running out there and dying. They were just getting slaughtered. And the thing is, nobody was actually shooting at them. They were running to a tree line, a dark tree line. And as they would run, bullets would fly out from over there. They were just flying. And you couldn't see who was shooting. There was no person over there actually shooting. They were running to a dark tree line and just being shot. They wouldn't even make it to the tree line before they would be shot. This field that they were in had to be about the size of maybe a football and a half, long, a football field and a half long, and it was being covered in blood. The men were being picked up by these old looking, I want to say World War One. The terms World War One keep popping in my head, but they look like World War One ambulances. And the medics kept trying to come out there and pick up the bodies and pick up the wounded. And there were so many young men dying and being shot and wounded till when wounded men were collected by the medics, they would eventually die, because what was happening is there were so many dead men that 7 of them would be stuffed into the back of these ambulances at a time. They would be stuffed in, and the wounded would die because they were among the dead. It was so much dying going on. It was horrific to see. And the scene ended up turning red. These young men were going out there and dying and not even having a chance. Like, they wouldn't duck. They had no guidance. They had no formation. They had no understanding. They literally did not know how to fight in this battle. And they were just running out there and charging and being slaughtered. And so the ambulances weren't even being touched. That's the thing. The ambulances were clean, but they were very old. No rust or anything, but they were very old style, like literally World War One old. I don't know, again, don't know why I keep saying World War One, but the medics themselves were never being shot. They were helping, but they weren't being, they were out there, but they weren't being shot. So now you got, that was the first dream. And by the end of the dream, the field was covered in blood that would not dry up. It was blood it would remain red. It covered it was so much blood, it covered the dark hue that came from the night sky. It was just so much. And it was horrible. This dream ended. Then months later, I had another dream. And for those that understand what I'm saying, if you understand what I'm saying, this dream was connected to the first one, even though they were months apart. And I'll tell you how I know it. You'll hear it when I talk about it. In the second dream, it was about Generation Z women. There were no millennial women in this. It was Generation Z women and millennial men. They were the only ones I saw in this. So the Generation Z women were running around holding babies. They were holding their children, and they were running around looking for men. They were asking men to marry them. They were telling men, please. They were telling the millennial men, please marry me. Please marry me. If you don't marry me, I won't survive. I won't be protected. No one will care. Help me. And a lot of the men were turning them down. The men were telling them, I'm not raising you in those babies. I'm not raising you in that baby. And what it was, like, it came to me. Those women were actually the mothers to the children that were the children of the men that had died in the first dream. They were all of the children were born out of wedlock. Every last one of them were born out of wedlock, and the women were running around trying to find a man that would marry them. They were even offering themselves in ways that they probably normally wouldn't do. I could hear so many different voices. I could hear so many different arguments, so many different disagreements, and so many different denials. And the women were running to the men, and they were telling the men, marry me, I don't care what I have to do. And some of the women even said, I'll be your seventh wife. I'll be your seventh wife. I don't care. I don't care if I'm the seventh one. And so the men were listening, and some of the men would choose as many women as they could. Some of the men chose none of them. A lot of them chose none of those women. And what they were saying was, I can't help you. I can't afford you. I don't want that baby. I don't want to raise another man's baby. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Why didn't you want me when I wanted you? What's going on now? No, I don't need that. But one of the statements stuck out to me. One statement said, I don't want to raise that child because I don't know anything about his father. If you know anything about the connection between young boys and their fathers, you kind of understand how severe this is. The millennial men were telling the women, I don't want what their father has to come into my household. And so they would deny the women. And some of the men even told the women, I'll take you, but you have to leave the baby. And a few of the women chose to leave the child just so they can be wives. There was women running around saying, God, please give me a husband. I don't want to live with my reproach. I don't want to live with my reproach. I don't want to live like this anymore. And scripture talks about this. Scripture talks about women who will want men and will be fine with basically being their wives up until the seventh wife. All of this, it's in there. So that was the second dream. Those women were like, I had one run up to me and she said, she was like, will you marry me? And I said, no. And she was like, why won't you marry me? And I told her, I said, I can't afford you, remember? Like, it just came out. I wasn't even really thinking about it. I was like, I can't afford you, remember? And she broke down. She started crying. She started begging. She said, please, I need a protector. I need a protector. I need somebody who can help me. And they were frantic. It was so many women. These were all for lack of a better term, these were all the baby mothers of the men that had died in the first dream. And it was pitiful. It was very sad. And that was the second dream. I didn't understand that one fully when it first happened. But what I did feel like was that a big war was coming.
All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, I just want to do a quick lesson on, the dream that, this guy had, because again, what he said, it was a couple years ago, if I'm not mistaken, that this video was posted, but still is pretty heavy, what this man's seen, now just from seeing first the elder Amawan Gabar's video. Then I seen the re-upload that Apostle Tahar put up of the elder Apostle Gabar's video, responding to that individual, because again, that's the time that we're coming into where he's seeing pretty much, men, Israelite men in particular, being, killed during war, KIA, if you will. Because that's what's going to take place in the near future. A draft is coming, and a lot of men are going to die, in this coming Third World War, because it's already started, but it's eventually going to build up, to that great war as he said, So I'm just going to bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And again, man, a lot of you 2/3, man, you YNs, a lot of you, you're going to perish during World War III, man. That's a lot of you guys, and that's a lot of you niggas' fate, to be slaughtered during war. Because again, as he said, how some of you shoot because a lot of you don't know how to shoot properly, It's easy for you to, slide on your own, your own brother, but when it actually comes to, sliding on the real ops, you niggas ain't nowhere to be found, But again, just it's like I said it before and I'll say it again, man, y'all time coming. Y'all gonna be able to do all that. It's like you had, some months ago where you had one nigga talking about, man, y'all just need to let us get our own state, man. Just put all the YNs there and just let us crash out. Well, that day is coming. You have to move to another state, man. Because once the draft comes, you're going to be shipped over to the Middle East, in the region of Saudi Arabia, and somewhere in that region, you're going to be able to crash out, So it's all or nothing. So that's what you want. That's what you're going to get. It's going to be your time to shine, to crash out on the battlefield and die, Because again, man, this is what's coming. He's seen in this vision, just like he said, young men. And he specifically mentioned twice Gen Z, first Gen Z men, because again, there's two parts that I'm going to be responding to, in that vision he's seen, right? But he said that Gen Z specifically, now Gen Z, would be from 1997 to 2012, That's the year range from, or that's pretty much the range for Gen Z. Then he also mentioned, millennials, which would be from if I'm not mistaken, 1981 to about 1996, But he mentioned those two not generals, but he mentioned those two generations, Gen Z specifically, because again, a lot of these YNs out here, they're of Gen Z because this is the last generation, By the last generation, I mean, this is the last generation that aren't going to make it, because these young niggas that are out here now, if they're not already adults, they can't become adults, man, because they're just going to get worse, So the Lord is just going to destroy them, whether in war or famine, however he sees fit, But again, a lot of you are going to get slaughtered during this Third World War, So I'm going to get the book of Joel chapter 2 and verse 28. And it says, "And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall dream, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions." And right, man, what this individual seen, he's seen visions, man. He's seen, 2/3 being slaughtered during war, and he also seen, Isaiah 4:1, come to pass. But again, now whether, he knows about, the Israelites or not, again, just like the Apostle Tahar said, he knew, of the scripture, speaking of Isaiah 4:1, because that's literally what he described, right? But he just didn't know where it was. Now, again, he could be, a possibility that he could be of the elect, and if he is, he'll fully wake up and come into this thing. Or if not, then, he just made these videos to, help brothers push out edification, but still the Lord poured out his spirit upon, different kinds of people in these last days to have these dreams. Some just to, boost the faith of the hopeful elect and others, to again bring out for edification, and again, man, and that man's dream was heavy. That's what he's seen. UYNs being slaughtered on the battlefield and women, being rejected, But as far as the first topic, I'm not even going to, spend, I'm not going to spend a long time on this one, just mainly hitting the points, just a couple points, and then, that'll be it. But I'm going to get the book of Ezekiel, chapter 39 and verse 11. And it says, "And it shall come to pass in that day that I will give unto Gog a place thereof, graves in Israel, the valley of the passengers on the east of the sea, and it shall stop the noses of the passengers, and there shall they bury Gog and all his multitude, and they shall call it the valley of Hamon-Gog." And right, this is speaking of, after, World War III takes place, there's going to be a lot of bodies, man. There are going to be a lot of dead bodies left on the battlefield, and then most of which are going to be, these different soldiers. It mentions Gog, so, a lot of Russians, are still going to be left on the battlefield, but just not them, all different nations, the Russians, you American Edomite soldiers, you 2/3 niggas, and, you other heathens that are going to be, a part of this Third World War. There's going to be a lot of dead bodies over in that region, which the elites, after, the destruction of America, they're going to be rounded up, and that's going to be their job to start burying these bodies, to get the earth, cleaned up, But again, the main point being is that, man, there are going to be a lot of bodies out here, So that just goes to show you that this war is going to be extremely devastating, And then just like he said, man, they didn't know what they were shooting at, They gave them, old weaponry, M16s, which again, the weaponry that Esau has now as far as these particular weapons, he's way advanced, man. So, of course, he may just give them little to no training and just throw them on the battlefield, It just goes to show you that the American military is not what it used to be, because they're just going to be looking for any and everybody to go and fight like they're doing over there in Ukraine, man. They're just, any man that they see, they're snatching them up and they're throwing them right in the heat of this war. And that's going to be the case for you YNs in these last days, man. So get ready, since y'all steady bragging about your little switchies, yeah, just go ahead and get ready. Because once you get drafted, you're not coming back home. And as I say, I always make mention of this, man. A lot of women are going to be left defenseless out here. And why? This is the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 16 and verse 34. And it says, "And the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine." All right, keep this scripture in mind because I'm going to bring it out again, But again, the main point being is that a lot of men are going to die in these different wars, man, whether it be, the civil war that's coming, these race wars, class wars, or ultimately World War III. Or if they don't die, in the war, then, they'll, die of the famine, or being attacked by a wild beast, or just being slain with the sword in general. But the main thing being, a lot of men are going to die during war or famine, and women are going to be left out here to fend for themselves, right? So let's come back. And then again, that, he was describing Isaiah 4:1 and he didn't realize it, But again, that's what's coming. And, the elder Kazak from GMS, Mississippi, he also did a video on this, man. Elder Pastor Tahar has been going into this a lot, and it's understandable. Of course, this is, certain brothers, favorite topic. I'm not saying brothers do, just, men in general, that are in this thing, this is their favorite topic, and it's understandable. This isn't the only thing we talk about as women, but this is the reality of the world that we live in. And this prophecy is getting ready to come to pass, So this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 4 and verse 1. And it says, "And in that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach." And right, man, he even said that word reproach, man, because these women are going to look to, take hold of a man, to take away that shame, man, and let's see what that word means. The word reproach, Strong's H 2781, and it says herpa, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, slakia. But what does it say? Reproach, scorn, taunt, scorn upon enemy, reproach, resting upon condition of shame, disgrace. So again, a lot of women are going to look to, cleave unto one man, and not just any man, the man of the Lord, an elect man, because men of the Lord are going to be precious in that day, because again, a lot of these men are going to die out here. So some of these men that may have wives or, quote unquote girlfriends or baby mamas, which is no such thing as, a girlfriend or a BM, but a lot of these women are going to be widows, because again, their men are going to die out here, right? But again, the main point being, Slacky on my phone, is that a lot of women are going to be left defenseless. So they're going to look for any man that's not going to matter what he looks like, how much money he has, or whatever. Just as long as, he marries them, he takes them to be that wife, you're looking to take away that shame, because again, a lot of women will be rejected in that day, but the Lord is going to, Lord willing, I myself and of the elect, but the Lord is going to give us that discernment, to pick and choose the right women to be saved, because again, there are, certain women out here that are going to be saved, just as it says. Let me grab that real quick. In 1 John chapter 4, or Slakia, it may not be 1 John, it may be Slakia, not 2 John, or Slakia, yeah, it is 2 John chapter 1 and verse 1, and it says, "The elder unto the elect lady and her children, whom I love in the truth, and not I only, but also all they that have known the truth." So right, that man also mentioned that, certain of the women in his dream also had children, but, they were being turned away. Now, however the Lord does it, we'll just have to wait and see. But again, if those women are, elect of the 1/3, I'll say, because again, the 1/3, consists of men, women, and children that are going to be saved, so certain of those women that have children, those children are going to be saved, through you, so it just depends, certain women that may have children, they may get rejected, but certain women, that have children, they're going to be accepted, they're going to be delivered, because again, it says the elect lady. It also says in the scriptures that, women shall be saved through childbearing, so let's keep that in mind as well, because a lot of women will get rejected, but again, there's still going to be, a few women that are going to make it as well, So let me come back to the book of Isaiah. I'm going to go to chapter 32 and verse 2. And it says, "And a man shall be as an hiding place from the wind representing, the destruction, the coming destruction, Jacob's trouble, these various troubles that are coming upon the earth, ultimately World War III, It says, "And a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. Right, man. Women are gonna seek protection in that day. As it says, the Lord is gonna make a man as a hiding place. Because again, like the man is important. Let me see if I remember correctly. Is it Isaiah chapter 14? If not, Slakia, let me look. It may be 13. But a man is going to be precious in that day, and not just any man, an elect man. Isaiah 13 and verse 12. And it says, I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. And right, man, it says even more than, precious gold, even the most luxurious gold you can get, man. An elect man, an elect Israelite man is going to be more precious than the finest gold, man. So again, this is just, a faith booster, just speaking to myself first and foremost, then, other men as well that may hear this video, but, it's a faith booster that, Lord willing, if we're of the elect, the Lord is going to make us precious, right? Because men are the prize. The Israelite man, not just any Israelite man, an elect Israelite man is going to be more precious than fine gold. Because what this current world tells us that, women are the prize, women are, this, that, and the third. Well, man, there's going to be a scarcity of men out here. There's going to be plenty of women, but there's going to be a scarcity on men, because you're starting to see that. And the apostle even mentioned that you have other nations of women that are flocking to the Israelite man. Why? Because they know, and they're, even if they don't know it consciously, just in their spirit, that they know that the Israelite man is the man to be with, that he is the greatest man on the face of this earth, So coming back to Isaiah, the 32nd chapter, I'm going to get Isaiah 32 and verse 9. It says, rise up, ye women that are at ease. Hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech. And right, man, rise up, ye women. So all you women out there, obviously not talking to the sisters, but, even the ones of you out there that may not necessarily be in the truth as of yet, but are slated to be saved, man, rise up, because again, that time is coming where all hell is going to break loose, man. And a lot of women are going to be left defenseless. No one's going to be there to protect you unless the Lord sends a man of the Lord to you, or directs you to him, because a lot of women are going to be ravished. A lot of women are going to be unalived in horrible fashions, not just women, all kinds of people. But as far as once this society collapses, women are going to suffer, the worst, because as it says in the scriptures, the woman is the weaker vessel, so now will be the time for you women to start, cleaving unto the men of the Lord, or just however the Lord does it. We'll just have to wait and see. But again, rise up, right? In verse 10, many days and years shall ye be troubled, ye careless women, for the vintage shall fail, the gathering shall not come. And right, man, you women have been living good, in this society, getting these different high paying jobs, getting these different degrees, even government benefits, man. These metropolises, these mother cities were set up for you, You have this strong, independent, mindset. Oh, you're strong and independent. You don't need a man. Okay, cool. We're going to see in that day, Verse 11 says, tremble, ye women that are at ease. And a lot of you women are at ease, man. A lot of you really live comfortable lives where you're starting to suffer now. A lot of you are starting to suffer, but a lot of you have been living really easy lives, man. Hitting up different men for money to do certain things or just, doing whatever, man. That's all coming to an end. It says, be troubled, ye careless ones, strip you and make you bare, and gird sackcloth upon your loins. And right, man, you women are going to be in a mournful state, because once this society collapses, man, it's not going to be good. You women are going to suffer the most, which is why, again, the ones of you that will be saved, again, don't worry. The Lord is going to send you a man of the Lord, or he's going to direct you to him. Somehow, some way, just remember you're going to be that man's woman. And it doesn't matter if you're at the 4th, 5th, 10th, 100th, it doesn't matter. Again, however the Lord, does it for each, man during that time, But 7 just represents completion. It can be any number of women that the Lord wants, to be saved by that particular Israelite man. Verse 12, it says, they shall lament for the teats, for the pleasant fields, for the fruitful vine. And right, man, all of these different things, these government benefits, these particular jobs you're working, all of that is going to come to an end. Which is why, again, during the time of Jacob's trouble, you're going to need a man of the Lord to protect you. Now I'm going to end it with the book of 2nd Esdras chapter 16 and verse 33. It says, the virgin shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. Why? Verse 34, and the war shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. And right, man, a lot of men are going to perish out here. They're going to die, right? Leaving a lot of women completely defenseless. So women aren't going to mind sharing in that day, because, this society, this Western society has pushed monogamy, knowing that the Israelite man, not just the Israelite man, just men in general, but especially the Israelite man is polygamous by nature. We all have the desire to love and be with more than one woman. That's literally our God-given right to deal with as many women as we want. And it's not just for the sake of sex, that just comes with it. That's how you build a nation, and one man can, man, one Israelite man can repopulate, man. And people just don't understand this. Just using the example of if, one man were on an island with 10 women, he could reproduce with all those women. He could have 10 children at once. And what I mean at once, again, he could, deal with all those women. And then, obviously they're all going to give birth, but still, that's what the main purpose of the act of sex is, to, to be fruitful and multiply, bring forth children, because it also says in the scriptures that Israel is as the sand of the sea. So we're a very large nation, So there's going to be a lot of reproduction going on, man, because again, after the 2/3 are destroyed, we're going to have to bring them back, And matter of fact, you know what? Let me grab that. I'll actually end it with this scripture, because this is what's coming, This is what's coming. So this is the book of Isaiah chapter 60 and verse 22. It says, a little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. The Lord will hasten it in his time, right? Obviously, once, we get in the kingdom, one Israelite man will damn near be able to bring back the entire nation by himself, but the Lord is going to have it to where, every Israelite man is going to have, as many wives as he wants, but it's going to be for the sake of what? Reproduction, to bring forth children, because Israel is a very large nation, man, and we're all going to be righteous, but before we get to our glorious kingdom, we're going to have to go through hell first. And again, one of those things, and the primary thing being Jacob's Trouble and World War III, because again, a lot of you women, again, as I've said before, that if you don't have a husband, the Lord is going to give you a husband in due time. You just have to wait, just like certain brothers that don't have wives. I don't, I myself, I don't have, a wife, or children. But if the Lord, if it's the Lord's will during that time, then, he's going to make things happen, in his time. So the dream that man had, was heavy, both of those dreams. And it just goes to show you that, that's both of those things are about to come to pass. World War III, a lot of men being slaughtered in the battlefield, and Isaiah 4:1, multiple women clinging unto one man, to take away their reproach. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all our praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I say, Shalom.